Good evening, fellow Barbadians. 3.5 years ago, we, the Barbados Labour Party, came to you, our fellow Barbadians, and asked you to give us the opportunity to rescue our country once again from the gross mismanagement of the Democratic Labour Party. Our country had plunged to such depths that our major visitor source markets were issuing travel advisories because raw sewage was literally flowing in the streets of our dear land. Now, if that imagery and reality were not horrible enough, this embarrassing nightmare was coupled with 23 downgrades of our economy from the international credit rating agencies. Our national debt instruments had been given junk bond status. The overwhelming risk of devaluation loomed, and we had a mere 4 weeks of foreign reserves at our central bank. For the second time since independence, the DLP had taken us to the brink of social and economic disaster by mismanaging our economy and, by extension, our national affairs. Running out of reserves meant that in a matter of weeks, not months, not years, but 4 weeks, Barbados would have suffered severe shortages of essentials like food, medicine, and petroleum products. I don't think that we need to explain any further how dire was that situation. And yes, you gave us the overwhelming mandate to rescue Barbados from the depths of despair and the loss of hope inflicted on us by the mismanagement of the DLP. It was unimaginable that a Democratic Labour Party that used to boast of the Right Honourable Errol Barrow's legacy of free education would kick down the ladder from which they too had benefited. In the process, they would have also disenfranchised thousands upon thousands of young Barbadians by denying them the opportunity to a free tertiary education, which many of them had received. If this is not kicking down the ladder, then what is? Again, to put this matter in its true perspective, University of the West Indies CAFIL Barbadian student enrollment fell by a whopping 50% under the Democratic Labour Party government that forced young Barbadians and their struggling families to have to pay tuition fees. It is on this point of education that we feel compelled to remind Barbadians of our own legacy in education. It was our great founding father, the Right Excellent Sir Grantley Adams, who pioneered free education, along with the transformational democratic right to vote. We cannot and we should not ever take for granted the full meaning of adult suffrage. Today, there are still millions of people around the world losing their lives in their fight for the right to vote. Be reminded that in 1976, when the Barbados Labour Party assumed governmental office, there were still thousands of poor Barbadians desperately paying school fees. It was during the 1976 to 1986 decade that our visionary BLP leadership completed the universality of free education in Barbados. In fact, one former Minister of Education often speaks of the countless mothers who to this day remain thankful that their children were relieved of the burden of having to find school fees in order to receive a decent primary and secondary education in this country. Now, the government would have reversed these gains in the early 21st century and denied thousands of students the right to free university education was beyond a national shame. 3.5 years later, hundreds of students at both the undergraduate and graduate levels can once again dream of a better life for themselves and their families, present and future, thanks to this Mia Mottley administration. Today, as we speak, Barbados's international reputation has been restored. All Barbadians can be proud that we are once again considered the gem of the Caribbean. Within a matter of weeks, not months, not years, but weeks, we stopped the flow of raw sewage that was flowing in our streets. And we are asking you to stay the course as we continue our restoration and rebuilding efforts. International reserves now stand at 20 weeks of import cover. Let's repeat that. 20 weeks of import cover as against 4 weeks when we took office. Stay the course. Under Mia Mottley's leadership and our expert team of economic advisors, we have restored our foreign reserves to a safe and secure level, and we have saved the Barbados dollar once again. Yes, you will hear that we have borrowed. It is well known that a country of our size and resource base cannot finance its existence from domestic sources alone. Countries like Barbados must borrow from external sources to finance its living and to build productive capacity for the future. Let's therefore address this once and for all. A country is only able to borrow favorably from international financial institutions if, one, creditors must have confidence in the political management and political stability of that country. Two, that country's economic affairs must be well managed. And three, there must be trust and confidence that that country can repay its debt. Under the Mia Mottley administration, Barbados has ticked all three boxes. So much so that we have received very favorable interest rates for resources borrowed. And the same said credit agencies that downgraded Barbados 23 times under the mismanagement of the DLP today rate us as having a very stable and favorable outlook. With the mandate that you gave us, we will admit that that brought high expectations. We also set very high expectations for ourselves as a government. After all, we live and breathe our motto, a better life for our people. What were these high expectations? These were distilled into our covenant of hope, which is still our guiding light today, as much as it was 4 years ago when we first presented it to you. These high expectations that we set for ourselves were what we declared in our manifesto as our mission-critical issues. We are acutely aware that having this mandate meant that our opposition was now extra-parliamentum, in other words, outside of Parliament. This indeed is testimony to a healthy democracy where citizens are so enfranchised and empowered that they can openly critique the government without fear of retribution and or victimization. Part of restoring the dignity of all Barbadians is the right to adequate housing, the right to running water, the right to electricity, and connectivity to the internet. Today, Barbados is one step closer to the total elimination of outdoor pit toilets, thanks again to this Mia Mottley administration. When we promised 30,000 jobs from 1994 to 2008, we delivered. In 2008, Barbados had a record high of $2 billion in foreign reserves, 5% unemployment, which economists will tell you is equivalent to full employment, because that 5% would normally represent those who are between jobs and who voluntarily opt not to enter the job market. This was the longest period of sustained economic growth in the history of Barbados. So what did this mean? This meant an explosion in home ownership in Barbados. Barbadians by the thousands were able to qualify for mortgages, and we witnessed an unprecedented overall improvement in the United Nations Human Development Index. What else did we witness during the economic miracle of 1994 to 2008? We saw an explosion of entrepreneurship and membership in the Barbados Small Business Association. We said then, and we will say it now again, that every Barbadian has the right to decent housing, and under a renewed mandate, we will continue our massive housing program, especially for first-time owners. We intend to create an enabling environment to stimulate the first housing boom in Barbados. This will be done through the joint efforts of both private contractors and the government. We have already told you about our strategy of planning games, the elimination of land tax for a significant portion of low-income landowners. And we are going a step further to help Barbadians who have benefited from the Tenantries Freehold Purchase Act to put their house in order by offering them assistance and training for estate planning, which is dealing with personal financial matters like wills, trusts, and insurance, so that we start to create intergenerational wealth through land and home ownership. When we say a better life for our people, there's no other place to start than with the health of the nation. A healthy nation is a wealthy nation. In December 2019, there were rumblings of a new virus in Wuhan, China, that was causing some concern for the officials of the World Health Organization. By March 2020, there was a global domino effect of lockdowns aimed at stemming the spread of COVID-19. Barbados, as a major tourist destination in the Caribbean, was not spared the wrath of this pandemic. Thanks to the foresight of this government, the Harrison's Point Health Facility was quickly completed to handle the surge of the pandemic. My fellow Barbadians, many will write about this dark period in human history we are now living through. They will dedicate prose and poetry to and about those who have lost their lives and to those who survived. Here, I must personally offer my most sincere condolences to the families of our fellow Barbadians who lost fathers, mothers, brothers, sisters, uncles, aunts, and children to this dreadful disease. Though Barbados' management of this public health crisis has been admired and accorded huge commendation by the World Health Organization for our management of the pandemic, we know that there is still much work to be done. Stay the course with us. Today, almost 70% of the eligible population is fully vaccinated. We therefore continue urging you to follow the protocols, get vaccinated, and get your booster shots if recommended. In addition to our massive vaccination program, our caring government has implemented the Vulnerable Family Survival Program through the Household Mitigation Unit to ensure that those families who lost most of their income due to COVID-19 are still able to put food on their tables during this pandemic. We must publicly recognize and thank Mr. Corey Lane for his tireless efforts in pushing through this program to help the most vulnerable in our society. There is so much more that we have already delivered. If you recall, in 2021, we had the volcanic eruption in neighboring St. Vincent. We had the freak storm. We had the Category 1 Hurricane Elsa. And of course, we had the Delta variant. But we have worked to overcome each of these events, which in themselves could have been catastrophic if not managed effectively. We will continue to deliver a better life for all Barbadians through our digitization program. There is the facility of Easy Pay, online processing for certificates of character. The central bank has completed its digital process management for foreign exchange, and as we speak, the Immigration Department is about to roll out an online application for passports, and the Transport Board will be introducing a digital card in short order. Stay the course with us as we continue this process of rapid digitization to make Barbados better for you and to improve our global standing as an ideal place for doing business. Our Welcome Stamp program to date has been very successful, bringing in millions of dollars in foreign exchange into our country. We intend to redouble our efforts with this program in the future. As you can imagine, when someone decides to relocate to another country for a year on their programs such as our Welcome Stamp initiative, there are several boxes that person must tick. After Barbados announced our program, many other countries like Bermuda, Greece, Estonia, and others copied and followed suit. So what attracted and continues to attract welcome stampers to our shores? These short-term residents and visitors all report that in Barbados, they all feel very safe. The Barbados Labour Party government over the last 3.5 years has been working overtime to make Barbados safer for us and our visitors. And just last week, the police reported a 24% overall decrease in crime. We are here to serve. We will continue our open communication, and we will listen even more. Of course, many of you are questioning why a new election and why now. The continued onslaught of COVID-19 has thrust upon us the need for a complete reset. We have to restructure our post-pandemic economy to ensure that no Barbadian family is left behind, to ensure that every single Barbadian household has a guaranteed income, to further cement our food security, to ensure our rights to home ownership, our right to free education, our right to free healthcare. These are now rights and entitlements that Barbadians from all walks of life have earned, and the Barbados Labour Party will ensure that these rights are defended at all costs. Given what we are going through, would you trust the Dems after their record of gross mismanagement of our economy, our society, and our country? We all know what this Mia Motley administration inherited and our rescue mission. So we ask you to stay the course and give us a renewed mandate for the next 5 years. We are asking you to stay the course for a newly transformed post-pandemic economy as we rebuild our beloved Barbados, shape our new republic, and pay forward for our youth and Barbadians of future generations. May the good Lord continue to protect our nation, bless us, and guide us. Good night, Barbados.